This is Papa B reading, and I am continuing with part 2 of chapter 7, which is titled, What Happened at the Front Door? I continue. If he had heard that bit about the land of youth a few days ago, he would have thought Aunt Letty was just talking without meaning anything particular, the way grown-ups do, and it wouldn't have interested him. He almost thought so now. But suddenly it flashed upon his mind that he now knew, even if Aunt Letty didn't, that there really were other worlds, and that he himself had been in one of them. At that rate, there might be a real land of youth somewhere. There might be almost anything. There might be fruit in some other world that would really cure his mother. And well, you know how it feels if you begin hoping for something that you want desperately badly. You almost fight against the hope because it's too good to be true. You've been disappointed so often before. That was how Diggory felt. But it was no good trying to throttle this hope. It might really, it just might be true. So many odd things had happened already, and he had the magic rings. There must be worlds you could get to through every pool in the wood. He could hunt through them all, and then Mother well again. Everything right again. He forgot all about watching for the witch. His hand was already going into the pocket where he kept the yellow ring when at once he heard a sound of galloping. Hello, what's that? Thought Diggory. Fire engine? I wonder what house is on fire. Great Scott, it's coming here. Why, it's her. I needn't tell you who he meant by her. First came the hansom. There was no one standing in the driver's seat. On the roof, not sitting but standing on the roof, swaying with superb balance as it came at full speed round the corner. With one wheel in the air was Jadis, the queen of queens and the terror of charm. Her teeth were barred, her eyes shone like fire, and her long hair streamed out behind her like a comet's tail. She was flogging the horse without mercy. Its nostrils were wide and red, and its sides were spotted with foam. It galloped madly up to the front door, missing the lamp post by an inch, and then reared up on its hind legs. And the hansom crashed into the lamp post and shattered into several pieces. The witch, with a magnificent jump, had sprung clear just in time and landed on the horse's back. She settled herself astride and leaned forward, whispering things in its ear. They must have been things meant to, not to quiet it, but to madden it. It was on its hind legs again in a moment, and its neigh was like a scream. It was all hooves and teeth and eyes and tossing mane. Only a splendid rider could have stayed on its back. Before Diggory had recovered his breath, a good many things began to happen. A second hansom dashed up close behind the first. Out of it there jumped a fat man in a frock coat and a policeman. There came a third hansom with 2 more policemen in it. After it came about 20 people, mostly errand boys on bicycle, all ringing their bells and letting out cheers and catcalls. Last of all came a crowd of people on foot, all very hot with running, but obviously enjoying themselves. Windows shut up in all the houses of that street, and a housemaid or a butler appeared at every front door. They wanted to see the fun. Meanwhile, an old gentleman had begun to struggle shakily out of the ruins of the first hansom. Several people rushed forward to help him, but as one pulled him one way and another, perhaps he would have got out quite as quickly on his own. Diggory guessed that the old gentleman must be Uncle Andrew, but you couldn't see his face. His tall hat had been bashed down over it. Diggory rushed out and joined the crowd. That's the woman! That's the woman! Cried the fat man, pointing at Jadis. Do your duty, constable. Hundreds and thousands of pounds worth she's taken out of my shop. Look at that rope of pearls around her neck. That's mine, and she's given me a black eye too. What's more, that she has, governor, said one of the crowd, and as lovely a black eye as I wish to see. Beautiful bit of work that must have been. Gor, ain't she strong then? She ought to have a piece of raw steak on it, mister. That's what it wants, said a butcher's boy. Now then, said the most important of the policemen, what's all this here? I tell you, she, began the fat man, when someone else cried out. Don't let the old cove in the cab get away. He put her up to it. The old gentleman, who was certainly Uncle Andrew, had just succeeded in standing up and was rubbing his bruises. Now then, said the policeman, turning to him, what's all this? Lumpful, pumph, pumph, said Uncle Andrew's voice from inside the hat. None of that now, said the policeman sternly. You find this is no laughing matter. Take that hat off, see? This was more easily said than done, but after Uncle Andrew had struggled in vain with the hat for some time, 2 other policemen seized it by the brim and forced it off. Thank you, said Uncle Andrew in a faint voice. Thank you. Dear me, I'm terribly shaken. If someone could give me a small glass of brandy. Now, you attend to me, if you please, said the policeman, taking out a very large notebook and a very small pencil. Are you in charge of that there young woman? Look out, called several voices, and the policeman jumped a step backward just in time. The horse had aimed a kick at him, which would have probably have killed him. Then the witch wheeled the horse around so that she faced the crowd and its hind legs were on the footpath. She had a long, bright knife in her hand and had been busily cutting the horse free from the wreck of the hansom. All this time, Diggory had been trying to get into position from which he could touch the witch. This wasn't as easy because on the side nearest to him there were too many people, and in order to get round to the other side he had to pass between the horse's hoofs and the railings of the area that surrounded the house. For the Ketterleys' house had a basement. If you know anything about houses, and especially if you had seen what a state that horse was in at that moment, you will realize that this was Ticker's thing to do. Diggory knew lots about horses, for he set his teeth and got ready to make a dash for it as soon as he saw a favorable moment. A red-faced man in a bowler hat had now shouldered his way to the front of the crowd. Aye, policeman, he said, that's my horse, what he's sitting on, same as it's my cab, which he's made matchwood of. One at a time, please. One at a time, said the policeman. But there ain't no time, said the cabby. I know that horse better than you do. 'Tain't an ordinary horse. His father was an officer's charger in the cavalry, he was, and if the young woman goes on exciting him, there'll be murder done. Ere, let me get at him. The policeman was only too glad to have a good reason for calling further away from the house, or the horse rather. The cabby took a step nearer, looked up at Jadis, and said in a not unkindly voice, Now, missy, let me get at his head, and just you get off. You're a liddy, and you don't want all these roughs going for you, do you? You want to go home and have a nice cup of tea and lay down quiet like. Then you'll feel ever so much better. At the same time, he stretched out his hand toward the horse's head with the words, Steady, Strawberry, old boy, steady now. Then for the first time the witch spoke. Dog, came her clear, cold voice, ringing loud above all the other noises. Dog, unhand our royal charger. We are the Empress Jadis. And that ends Part 2 of Chapter 7, which is titled, What Happened at the Front Door? That's all for now. Please come back and let me read again. Goodbye. This is Papa B reading.